Hello everybody, it's Chibi, and today I'm here to bring you a manga chapter review of Boku no Hero Academia, chapter 29. So, from now on, it seems like Boku no Hero is going to be releasing on a Monday, because if you did not realize, Viz, that released a news article on Anime News Network, stated that they are picking up Boku no Hero Academia, and they will be releasing it every single day on a Monday, and for instance, they will be translated on Monday. So, if you have a Shonen Jump, subscription, you will actually be able to keep up with the chapters and support Boku no Hero Academia. Anyways, getting on to the actual chapter. So we get a color page, or multiple color pages of Boku no Hero this week, and quite surprising, like straight up quite surprising to see that many color pages, because if I know anything when it comes to Bakuman states when a series gets a lot of color pages, that's pretty impressive. And to see how Boku no Hero Academia continues to have color pages, like it's had a lot of front color pages and stuff like that, it just shows you how popular this series is becoming, and it just shows us how much hope this series really has for the future. So, the color pages, overall, very, very beautiful, artistic. I love how the mangaka dived in with the coloring. It just looks really beautiful, and some of the panels actually look like something you would see in an anime. So, moving past the color pages, this chapter, for the most part, very simple chapter. Like, this review most likely is going to be rather short, because it is a simple chapter. Like, it's very simple, very basic. Let's do a quick overview of this chapter. So, the chapter, for the most part, we find out when the chapter begins that half of the entire 15 minutes of this, human cavalry match has passed. And as time progresses, you see how Todoroki actually steals the 10 million point bandana from our team Izuku in this chapter, which was kind of not surprising, because, Todoroki, he is a freaking boss. He's like one of the strongest classmates of Izuku, besides Bakugo. So to see how he stole the headband was not surprising at all. I'm surprised that Izuku was actually able to survive that long through the entirety of this match. Now, at the end of the chapter, we have pretty much a very shocking revelation, because as we find out in this chapter, in the last chapter, Todoroki does not want to use his, fire side. As we know, he has a fire and ice side, but he does not want to use his fire abilities in a real match, in combat. And he actually uses his fire abilities to actually block Izuku at the end of this chapter. From what I see, it looks like he's using his fire abilities. So, that's quite shocking. So, Izuku actually pushed Todoroki to use his fire abilities. It just goes to show you how far Izuku pushed him and how desperate Todoroki is to win this match. So I like that overall. We get to see a little bit of character development along with some build up to this overall development at the end of the chapter, which quite shocked me. I did not expect to see Izuku force him to do something like that. And we get to see how Todoroki's father is watching in the stands. He's watching this entire match. He's like, oh, the Izuku figured you out, huh, son? So it seems like Todoroki's father knows that he doesn't like using his fire side, so I wonder exactly what happened in the past. There's a lot of mysteries and questions around that. As I've stated in multiple chapters back, it's quite obvious that eventually down the road, there's going to be an arc centered around Todoroki that probably focuses on his father and his, type of grudge or issue, because it's kind of obvious since his father is the second greatest hero in the world, and then you have it to where All Might is the #1 hero. They definitely had probably some beef in the past, and that will definitely lead to where Izuku and Todoroki have some beef in the future too. So I can't wait to see that overall development, the way it's been building up in these past couple chapters, which I am really freaking enjoying. So moving into the other segments of this chapter, Tokoyami reveals a little bit of his power in this. Like, he goes a little bit more in depth with his power, and one thing before I actually really dive into it, last chapter I neglected to talk about Tokoyami's actual ability being able to speak. Like his, dark flame familiar or whatever it was actually able to speak. It was actually saying something in the last chapter, and Chibi pointed out, saying like, Chibi, you didn't mention that. Sorry about not mentioning that, I didn't notice it, but yeah. For supposedly his, shadow ability actually has a mind of its own, and from what we find out in this chapter, it's clarified that this, shadow ability that lives inside of him, when it comes out and it's in, deep darkness, like if you were surrounded by a darkness, like let's say a dark tunnel, this ability of Tokoyami's will go out of control and start attacking people, from what I understood from this chapter. So his ability is kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, it's a very strong ability if he's in nothing but darkness, but it will also probably turn against him. But if he learns to control it, it is a dangerous ability to use against enemies because it is completely strong. And then vice versa, if you're in a light area with a lot of light and stuff, the ability actually loses attack power and different things like that, but it also allows it to where Tokoyami is able to control his ability a lot more. So once again, we get to see repercussion of the different quirk type abilities. Like I said a long time ago, it's really interesting to see how some of these quirk abilities have their own side effects. As we know, Ochako, she has her side effect because if she tries to use her ability on herself, she gets very woozy, dizzy, nausea, and stuff like that. And then we know what happens to Izuku if he also uses his ability, like freaking he'll break his bones in pieces. So to see once again another character introduced that also has some form of side effects when it comes to his quirks is a pretty interesting development. I like getting to see once again how the mangaka of this series is diving into these other characters and trying to develop them, giving them a little bit of side effects, diving into their abilities, allowing us to see more about their abilities and seeing them fleshed out. Once again, I just really enjoy this series of how it continues to do something like that. And also on top of that, besides just Tokoyami, there was a bunch of other characters in this episode that had a lot of their abilities fleshed out. Like, once again, another character that's kind of been talked about or kind of, you know, slowly been built up in these past couple chapters got his ability revealed. Like, there's one dude that has this copycat ability. And this is one ability I was actually waiting to see introduced for quite a while now. Because usually when it comes to superhero type series and stuff like that, there's always that one hero or villain that can, you know, copy other heroes' abilities. And finally, we have a character that can actually do something like that, and we find out that this copycat ability has its weaknesses, but also it's a very broken ability. For instance, if this dude comes in contact with any person, he will be able to use that person's ability for 5 minutes. And he can only use one ability at one given time. Like, he can't use 2 abilities, he can't use 3 abilities, he can only use the one ability he copies. Now, it wasn't specifically stated if, like, for some reason, like, he can, you know, switch out the abilities in the middle of that 5-minute given time. Like, I mean, it wasn't stated in this chapter if he was to, let's say, get Izuku's power to be able to use, like, All Might Strength. It wasn't stated like he could switch over to Todoroki's ability in under, like, 2 minutes. It wasn't stated that he can do something like that. So I wonder if his weakness is, if he steals an ability, does he have to stick with that ability for the rest of the 5 minutes? Because if that is a weakness, that will definitely play against him in the future. I definitely see how that would. But moving past that, other things of the chapter, pretty much the ending conclusion of the chapter, Izuku loses his headband, and he's going all in desperate mode to try to get it back from Todoroki by going full force in and trying to steal the headband back, and Todoroki actually uses his fire side. So that's pretty much this chapter in a nutshell. Being simple about it, it was a very good chapter. There's a lot more going on, but that's pretty much majority of the real development that's taking on to the surface of the chapter. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, how did you feel about this week's chapter of Boku no Hero Academia? How do you feel about the chapters now having a set schedule on a Monday? Let me know. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.